What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry, where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! I'm pumped to introduce today's guest of the Halftime Snacks. This guest is a graduate of Wharton and Kellogg School of Management. He grew up in St. Louis, started a business, and sold it to become an angel investor of companies in different sectors such as software, healthcare, and sports. For 26 years already, he's been the CEO of KB Partners, a venture capital and private equity firm that invests in early-stage sports technology companies with passionate entrepreneurs and strong management teams. Besides being involved with several sports technology companies, our guest is also the founder of Club Champion Golf, the nationwide leader in custom club fittings. I can guarantee this episode will be packed with interesting takeaways, so ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy my conversation with Mr. Keith Bank.
Hey, Ronan. Nice to be on the show.
It's so great to have you on. Thank you for accepting our invitation to the show. I want to kick off our conversation with a quick icebreaker, a fun one. I want to know, what is the craziest thing that you have on your bucket list? What's the craziest thing you're planning on doing?
Well, I don't know how crazy it is, but I am trying to play all of the U.S. and world top 100 golf courses, and I'm getting very close to accomplishing that. I've got 99 of the top 100 in the U.S. and 81 of the world top 100. So hopefully in the next year or two, I'm going to hit the 100 mark with both, and I will be a very happy camper, as will my wife.
Nice. Do you have a favorite one?
No favorite, but probably a top five, and it's always a very difficult question to ask. But I probably would say, in the U.S., it's probably either Pine Valley or Cypress Point, and in the world, probably Royal Dornoch.
Nice. I hope I get to play one day with you, Keith, in one of those places. And man, I'm so happy to have you on the show. We're going to be talking about so many things regarding KB Partners, early stage investments, sports technology, a couple of your stories. So how about we kick it off with one of the things that you think about when you're recruiting people, when you're hiring people to work with you, either in KB Partners or any other of the other companies that you work in. What is the required character or the required skill set, 3 or 4 skills, traits that you look for in people who want to work with you and want to collaborate on the different projects that you're running?
That's interesting. We look for similar traits for our own internal employees, and then also members of management teams of the portfolio companies we support. And having been an entrepreneur most of my life, and our tagline for our company is entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, we like to provide that mindset. So, we look for things like grit, figuring things out, not taking no for an answer, cast iron stomach, people who are coachable, malleable, people who have charisma that can attract and maintain talent, people who have passion for what they're doing. There's nothing worse than hiring people who hate getting up and going to work every day. We like people who can't wait to get at it and are disappointed when they have to go to bed to stop the day's activities. Integrity is foremost. There's no substitute for integrity in life or in business. And then lastly, an entrepreneurial mindset. We back entrepreneurs, so you have to know kind of how they think and hopefully be able to relate to them. So I'd say those are some of the key traits we look for.
If you guys want to work for Keith, you better have those traits and skills. And that is great. Keith, thank you so much for sharing that. You've been, managing and being the board member of many companies, and you've been in front of so many projects and different types of investments. So I want to know if there's anything you wished you known before taking your first management role. Is there anything that you could probably advise yourself if you would meet Keith from 18 years old Keith, would there be any advice that you'd give him in terms of like management? One thing that you would advise him, or something that you wish you'd know when you were just beginning?
I would think that you learn as you go, but I think managing people, managing companies, managing situations comes with a huge responsibility. And I think if you're not prepared to take on that responsibility, people's livelihoods rely on you, people's mental state relies on you, their families rely on you. So it's a big responsibility. And I would say if you're not up to the task to deal with a lot of the challenges that come with being responsible for other people and other people's lives, you know, work in the corporate world, work for other people, but being a manager, being a leader, being a principal in a firm comes with a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah, I agree with you, Keith. Managing people is a whole different universe, and as you said, or as who was this Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. Uncle Ben said that, it actually. So yeah, I think that you're right. Let's talk a little bit about KB Partners. 26 years already existing and happening. How do you think about it from a macro perspective, and or what are you focusing your time on? Like, just guide us through or walk us through a little bit of what goes on in your mind when you're thinking about strategy for KB, or how do you go about organizing what's more important for it, and how are you focusing your time on it?
So it's evolved over the years. I started out as a glorified angel investor, for lack of a better term, and kind of turned into more of maybe a super angel investor, writing bigger checks, doing bigger deals. And that morphed into having a traditional early stage technology focused venture capital firm. We had no sports focus originally. When we started, we were investing in industrial technology, computer hardware and software, medical devices, internet products and services. And over time, after having raised and invested a couple of funds in that area, I went back to my entrepreneurial roots and went back to becoming an angel investor, and just looked for really interesting opportunities and entrepreneurs, a handful of which happened to be in this intersection of sports and technology. And I was a passionate sports person, have been my whole life, was an athlete. And when I looked at the landscape, this is going back 6, 7 years, what I saw was a lot of innovation occurring in sports and technology, probably more in the last 5 years than in the 100 years prior to that. And very few people really focused on investing, especially at the early stage. You had a few team owners dabbling, a few athletes dabbling, a smattering of firms, but nobody really doing it the way that I wanted to do it. So about 5 years ago, I decided to really look into the space deeply, and saw a lot of macro trends that were very interesting. One, looked like sports betting was going to become legalized in the US and more relevant around the world. The emergence of esports, something that 5, 6, 7 years ago, no one would have even known what you were talking about or heard of it. The crazy rights fees being paid by all these media companies for sports, and then the necessary need to figure out ways to monetize and pay for those huge rights fees. So further fan engagement platforms, everybody wanting to train like a professional athlete, monitor their sleep and their heart rate and all these other things. And said, boy, if you really could attack this space in a systematic way, and use the network that I had cultivated over the years, it would be a pretty interesting recipe for potential success. So decided to get back into the fund business, and we've now raised 2 early stage sports tech funds. We see about 1,500 deals a year, probably meet with 200 to 250 companies a year, get into serious due diligence on 20 to 25, and make 5, 6, 7, 8 investments a year. So massive funnel, massive weeding out process. In order to process that much deal flow, you have to put systems in place, and you have to have the people in place. And we respond to every single one of those 1,500 inbound inquiries. So we don't just ignore the ones we're not interested in. We try to treat people with the golden rule, the way we would like to be treated. And you just never know how that's going to come back to you. So it's a big responsibility. It's a lot to do, but it's also a ton of fun trying to figure out, who to back, what to back, and then hopefully see the results at the end of the day is very, very rewarding.
I wonder, how do you go about thinking about your portfolio as an investor, especially as an angel investor? How do you see this type of investments in your portfolio? How much does it make in terms of percentage of your portfolio? What kind of risk do you see for those kind of investments? Is this like high risk, high reward, and then you put like a small allocation of your money towards it, or is it most of your portfolio allocated towards angel investments? Or how you been thinking about optimizing that side, that element for you specifically, Keith?
Yeah, we're not doing any angel investing. Everything we're doing is out of our two funds. So we are a traditional VC, early stage, probably 80% seed and 20% Series A. So we get in very early. We are definitely at the highest risk end of the continuum and hopefully at the highest return end as well, because those go hand in hand. But we like getting in early. We have built an incredible network of advisors and LPs that help us with sourcing, due diligence, opening up their networks to us, introductions to potential customers and suppliers for our portfolio companies, helping to recruit missing links to the management team, board members. So our whole model is super hands-on, where many venture investors place a lot of bets. They're passive. They hope they work. They don't want to lead deals. We lead 90+% of the deals we do. We take board seats 90+% of the time. And we always, always, always roll up our sleeves, bring our network to bear, and try to help create those key unlocks that are going to create value for our companies and our limited partners, investors. So our model is really entrepreneurial, really hands-on, and we think that gives you the extra chance to have those huge returns, which is what we're shooting for.
And what is the most challenging part of investing in early stage companies?
It's all about the who. I mean, we have a saying, the what has to be interesting and exciting, but without the who, you don't stand a fighting chance. So we spend an awful lot of time evaluating the management teams that we're considering backing. And it's not just looking at the resume or bio on a piece of paper. It's really delving deep and understanding their psyche, understanding their ability, again, to attract and maintain talent. Do they have a cast iron stomach? Can they pivot when things aren't going so well? Are they able to take coaching and advice? Are they creative, entrepreneurial, all the things that, again, you can't really measure other than it when you see it. So, pattern recognition is a big part of this business. And over my career, I've probably seen 40,000, business plans and management teams. And hopefully after you do it enough times, you start to know what right looks like and what good looks like. You're going to make mistakes like we all do. And no one's infallible, but I think you increase your odds for success by having that big data set for which to compare.
That is very interesting. I think it goes back to the first question of what required, character traits you're looking for. As you mentioned in the beginning, having that grit, having that leadership, spirit, and being that, entrepreneur. Probably that's also what you look for in companies that you invest in the management team, not only, in the founders. So I guess that it's really, really important, the human side. As you mentioned, you invest on the who, not really on the what. So it speaks a lot of, also, I guess, for companies and startups that, are thinking about collecting some funding investments or anything like that. Just also be thinking about like who you are, who you want to become, what you stand for, what your values are, your integrity. Work on that, because that's really important. That's what Keith and his partners are looking for when it comes to investments. Keith, what are some of the sports trends that you're liking right now at the moment? What is a technology that, if I bring you to KB Partners, you would be super interested in listening about? Any one or two in mind?
I wouldn't say one or two. We have five primary buckets in which we invest. The first is sports betting, but we tend to play that more from the infrastructure side. So it's unlikely we're going to back the next FanDuel or DraftKings, but we do like the picks and shovels side of the business. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into the betting ecosystem. And similarly in esports, we've stayed away from the team side of things, but we really like the infrastructure side, payment systems, tournament platforms, all the plumbing that goes into creating a successful ecosystem. The third area we call health, fitness, and wellness. It's obviously a very broad category, but that includes all of the connected fitness opportunities, all of the AR and VR and AI stuff. A lot of really interesting things going on there. The fourth area is OTT and media streaming. We've made quite a few investments in that space. We know a lot about it. And the fifth we call the live experience. And that's everything from youth sports, recruiting platforms, venue management, whether it be ticketing, parking, concessions, security, and also includes new sports concepts. We're actually backing a new 3-on-3 ice hockey league that we're crazy excited about that has some really novel. It's kind of part hockey, part sports betting, part social media and digital media and an amazing team. And we've passed on every other league that's come our way because none of them had made any economic sense. But this one is one we're really excited about.
Is there anything that you think that the sports industry is not doing right now or not thinking about right now that you think it should be thinking about or doing?
I think they're thinking about it, but I think diversity is really a huge issue in the sports world and in society in general. When you look at the numbers of participants, at least in most of the team sports, people of color and their representation on the management side, the coaching side, even the VC side, the investing side, we have a big internal initiative, which has started with the formation of our advisory board and is going to filter down to interns and employees that, I think it's a big thing that has to happen for societal reasons. And it's the right thing to do. So I think that's a big issue. It's talked about a lot. It's acted upon, maybe not as much as it's talked about. So we're trying to come up with a strategy in that area for our firm.
That is actually a great point, Keith. I agree with you. Diversity is such an important topic in the industry, inclusion, gender equality, really, really important. But that's another conversation for another halftime snack, which you're, of course, definitely invited for in the future. Man, and time has gone so fast. We've learned so many things from you and from your time in KB Partners, early stage investments, and a couple of your stories. So I can't leave without asking you a more personal question. Before we go, I want to know if there was a time that you remember that you messed up and you felt like you failed, and how did you bounce back? What is your mentality towards it? Can you share with us maybe a story or something similar?
I think probably, being swayed by the crowd or buying into the headlines. We have a very, very distinct way of doing things and method of doing things. We don't believe in being attracted to the next shiny object and paying silly prices for things, hoping someone's going to pay 2 or 3 times the silly price down the road. The music does stop playing at some point in time. So sticking to discipline, and there have been an occasion or two in my career where, I got swept up in the headlines or swept up in the frenzy around a particular space. And actually, when we raised our first and second venture funds, not the sports related ones, the internet was just exploding and the hottest thing. And everyone thought they were going to become a billionaire by selling whatever on the internet. And it's hard when the world around you is doing all that. So we actually co-invested in a deal with 2 of the top named tier firms in the history of venture capital from Silicon Valley. And we were actually the lead investor, identified the deal, ended up taking capital from 2 of these titans of the industry. And they kind of were like, this is the way we do it in Silicon Valley, go big or go home. And, let's pour all this money into this deal and let's And it was against my better judgment. Everything was saying to me, no, let's walk before we run. Let's figure it out before we, pour gas on the fire. And we ended up having a big disaster on our hands. It was a great lesson. It was a good lesson to learn early on in my venture investing career. I go to very great lengths to try not to repeat that again. So I think that's probably the best example. Without giving names and companies, that's one that I learned a lot from.
Not everything that shines is gold. I think that's a wonderful takeaway, Keith. Man, I want to thank you so much for taking time to be on the Halftime Snacks show. I really enjoyed hosting you, enjoyed listening from all your stories and your lessons from your past. I think they're very valuable, and our listeners are going to enjoy it a lot. So thank you so much, and I wish nothing but the best for you and KB Partners in the future. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.